Welcome back to this channel and today's episode. We're going to be talking today about one of the biggest issues that I think sweeps the entrepreneurial world and gets so many of us stuck and in our own way, and that is self-sabotage and self-doubt. So I talk a lot about, tech and strategies and automation and systems and stuff, but it's important to also create a bit of a system and a process for our mind monkeys when things get in the way. And what I'm going to talk about today is how you can actually recognize things quicker, actually understand the real issue that's going on underlying, understanding their roots, and actually learn some practical strategies of things that you can do to overcome them. If you didn't know, not only am I kind of like loving tech and tools and systems and automation, stuff like that, but I actually am a trained and qualified rapid transformational therapy practitioner and energy clearing practitioner as well. And I purposely added these things into my portfolio, into my skill sets, because I recognized how much my mindset was getting in the way. And, when I learned about some of these methods, I saw not only a huge shift in my own action taking and just the shift in my mind, that I wanted to be able to help my clients and people when it was appropriate, and having the strategic sides of things, the tactical sides of things, as well as that mindset support. I'm really proud that gives me that kind of holistic view that I can help my clients when I recognize that things come up that perhaps they aren't. So we've talked a lot recently about marketing and about tech and systems and stuff. And so I wanted to just bring in the reality of what it's like when you're running a business and how much actually our mindset can get in the way. So if you've ever kind of recognized and found yourself being stuck in a cycle, perhaps of procrastination, self-doubt is spiraling, even though you're great at what you do, you know that you can help people, you know that you've got so much skills and knowledge and stuff that you can help people with, but you find yourself constantly or, regularly feeling this doubt getting in the way, then firstly, just know that you are not alone. Even the 7-8 figure business owners will have different layers come up as they grow. And it's not to kind of scare you to think, oh my God, shit, I'm going to have issues, all the time. But there are new layers. I've got friends who are 7-figure, 8-figure business, and they all kind of have told me, like, it's different problems. It's new layers that you then have to work on. But the key, and that's what we're going to talk about in this episode, is actually recognizing what's actually going on so you can nip it in the bud much, much quicker and get back into that badass person that you actually are and back into action feeling confident. So what does self-sabotage and self-doubt look like in real terms, in terms of the day-to-day things that you might not necessarily recognize? So self-doubt, obviously, you'll recognize your own thoughts. You'll know when you're perhaps starting to feel a bit negatively about yourself. But self-sabotage can actually come up and you may not recognize it. You may not realize that that's actually what you're doing. So let's talk about what some of those things are that you might potentially relate to. Now, you might recognize that you procrastinate on things. Perhaps you know that you've got a big project that you need to be working on. Perhaps you're about to launch something new, or, do some kind of launch or relaunch or big campaign that perhaps you're a bit worried about. Perhaps it's a new offer and you're like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. And so instead you find yourself washing up in the kitchen or doing laundry or playing with your cat like I do, instead of, doing the work that's needed. Or perhaps you even think to yourself, who even am I to be putting out this offer or charging this much, doing this work, making it feel easy. And actually then you can end up sabotaging it. Perhaps deep down you have feelings of fear of success. It's a thing, and that can also come into play. Do you doubt your ideas, your decisions, and think, Am I even skilled enough or qualified enough to do this? Even though you have got the qualifications, you've done the certifications and the work, you're qualified, you have worked with people, or even if you haven't worked with that many clients yet, that you're the proof in the pudding, you're your own result. That you've got the backing there to be able to prove it. And you've got achievements that you feel proud of. So trust me, I know what it feels like. And there are so many, there are going to be millions of other entrepreneurs who feel just like you. But when it comes to all of these doubts that can come into our mind, it's going to fluctuate, right? You're going to have times where you just feel like on top of the world, you feel amazing, you feel so confident, you're like, yes, I'm awesome, things are going really well. Great. But when things, either it might be something happens, perhaps you get a bad review, or perhaps something in your personal life knocks you off your throne, and suddenly, this is what happened to me. I had a lot of things go on in my personal life, and it kind of sent me back down into this spiral. And so it's really key to kind of know that it is common. You're not alone, but it doesn't always feel like that, does it? You can feel like you're the only one that feels like this. You can feel like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Why is everybody else that I'm seeing, friends of yours, peers, people that you look up to, people that you have seen around, and you're like, God, how come they're like going to all these new levels? And you can sometimes feel like you're stuck and being left behind. But again, I want you to remember that everybody has their own journey. Just because somebody's soaring doesn't mean they're not going to have their own issues. And you don't always know what's going on behind closed doors. You don't know what's going through their mind, how much doubt or fear or worry or whatever that somebody else might be thinking. So it's really important to, what we see on social media is just a highlight reel. Like obviously most people aren't going to be going into every little, oh my God, this is the issues that I've been dealing with. So firstly, know that what you're seeing on social media isn't always real. People only share the successes. They don't share much about the downsides of things and what they're really going through. Secondly, you don't necessarily know how long they've been in business. It's that kind of saying they say, like, don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10 or 20. We are all different. And everyone is going to have their own peaks and troughs and their own shit to deal with in their own journeys. So let's just focus on you, and let's help you get out of that funk. Let's help you, reframe and rework your mind so that you can snap out of this, funk and spiral perhaps quicker, and get you back to showing up confidently, feeling it to your core, and knowing that you can help so many people. There are so many people out there that need you and what you do in your business. So some other ways that, self-sabotage can come up, it can be, tweaking your website constantly. It can be, creating new spreadsheets. I'm totally talking from personal experience as well. These are the things that I do. And you know what's funny? When I do my research for these episodes and I'll use ChatGPT, I'm like, you are calling me out, dude. Like, what the hell? And so it's good because it helps me have a little bit of a, oh, Jenny, you might potentially be doing some of these things too. Even though I'm very aware of things, and I do recognize things in my mind much quicker than obviously what I used to, but still I do find it funny when ChatGPT gives me support to be able to make my episodes and my content life much more streamlined, and I'm like, oh, whoops, that sounds like me. So know that we all do it, but it can be it can be tweaking your website, tinkering with it. It can be creating new offers when you don't need to. It can be, cleaning your office, tidying your desk. Could be avoiding calls with people, avoiding posting because perhaps deep down there is something else going on that's stopping you from wanting you to promote your offers, but you're perhaps not aware of it yet. And so this is all about awareness, because honestly, the more you become aware of your thoughts and how they drive your behaviors and your actions, that's where things can really turn around. And when you work on this stuff, like when you really do the deep inner work that is often needed, it really can transform how you feel, and that transforms how you show up, how you behave. It's the same as the negative. It starts with our thoughts and it goes to our behavior and our feelings and our behaviors that can then obviously affects our results. And so when you flip it around, then because you can deal with things from the root, from the heart of it, rather than just surface level. This is the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, is what I work with. You will notice such a huge difference. So instead, it can look like you tackle the most important tasks, the income producing, needle moving things. You don't put off, telling people about all the awesome ideas that you've got, new offers perhaps. You create content much quicker. You show up unapologetically you. This show is called the Brilliant You Business Show. And, I created the name because of like my kind of journey of that doubtful side. And then I did a lot of work. And honestly, the difference was massive. One of my big issues was self-trust. Self-trust is massive, and it's one of the topics that, a specific part that I'm really passionate about because it was one of my biggest barriers, really. So how it used to show up for me was I would constantly be needing like validation from coaches and mentors. I'd be like, oh, I've got this idea. Can I put it past you? And I wouldn't, put it out into the world. I wouldn't talk about it on social media. I wouldn't tell people about it publicly. Without kind of getting almost like permission from somebody who was, more advanced than me, more successful, had obviously been in the game a lot longer than me. And, that obviously meant that I either squashed ideas, they never saw the light of day. It was slower because I would then have to wait, for like the monthly call or the bi-weekly call until I could have my chance to go, I've got this idea. What do you think? And well, actually, I think every single time it was like, that sounds like a great idea. Go for it. So it was like needing somebody else to say, yes, Jenny, great, go for it, So that might be something that you can recognize. It also showed up in me. You get a great idea, you feel really excited about it, and then you kind of think, oh, then your mind gets in the way and your thoughts start thinking, but is anyone going to buy it? Is it really a good idea? Like, are you qualified enough? All these things come in it. And when I did a big session on self-trust specifically for me, especially when I was doing my qualification in RTT, which is rapid transformational therapy, obviously we had to practice on each other. So I got a lot of like free therapy, which was great. And I've worked with people that weren't just learning, I've paid, thousands to get a lot of help. And, that was how this show was born, actually, was I first made a commitment that, right, I wanted to get back into doing like regular content. And for me, having like a designated day that I started off doing a live Facebook Live. So having that like set day and time every single week. Back then I was doing it every week. Was good for me to kind of get back into that routine. And the more I worked on my self-trust, honestly, it was like, I was on fire. That was one of my best years, actually. 2021 was when I launched this show originally. And because I'd worked on my self-trust, just an idea that would sometimes come to me as I was speaking on this Facebook Live, I would just say, oh, actually, I could put together this thing. Who would be interested? If you're interested, like drop a comment below or whatever. And so that was a way of me kind of just testing the waters. Or often I would just go and create like a quick, easy little free resource for people. Other times it was it was a paid offer. And yeah, after a few months, I was getting sales come in a lot more regularly, and it was awesome. And the confidence in me was massive. And unfortunately, a couple of years ago, I was like re-triggered. I went through IVF for the fourth time after a big break. It didn't work, unfortunately. And that really like pushed me back like several years in my my own mindset. And so this is why I know the different stages. I know what it can be like when you're like up here, and also when you're full of self-doubt. And I just don't want more people to get stuck there for too long. I've had to do a lot of work myself. I'm not quite back up there fully yet, but I know I'm back on my way. And the journey is much shorter because not only of my own self-awareness, but I've got these tools in my little toolbox, and I've got these methods that I do that help really kind of clamp down and shorten that process, so I'm not going back down there. So when you're on the other side of the sale, it can look like showing up more authentically you, not giving a shit about what other people think about you, tackling the right projects and the right tasks. You just get on with it, and you just have more like, it's like when you feel confident, like if you've lost a bit of weight or you've got a tan, you just stand more confidently. You're like, look at me, you just have more presence, and that comes out in you. When you're doing your videos and when you're, working with clients and stuff, it comes out. That energy oozes out of you. And so this is why it's so important to work on this and not just always focus on the tactical stuff. Like, what's the latest and greatest strategy and tactic and platform? And should I be doing B-roll videos? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? Actually, some of that will probably be bullshit. And actually, if you can focus and work on healing that self-doubt from its root, overcoming self-sabotage, the practical, the tactical stuff just falls into place. So let's talk a bit about actually recognizing what is self-sabotage and what is it, or when is it, should I say, when is it more strategic? Because sometimes it is a strategic or tactical thing that actually a little shift can sometimes be a difference, versus when is it actually self-sabotage? When is it more mind-driven that's getting in the way? So I've obviously given you some examples of how self-sabotage can show up. So yes, obviously, if you know that you've got a big project coming on and you're ironing, I mean, God forbid, who the hell irons these days anyway? Or if you go, oh, I really know I've got this deadline, but I really must suddenly go and make some cupcakes, then, that can be a bit more of an obvious sign. I know I'm procrastinating, but it is those more underlying ones, the things that you may not recognize. And this was definitely something that I recognized was I love creating new ideas. Like, I'm a creative person. And I'm also, if you're into human design, when you have a report done and you read the in-depth stuff, you're like, oh my God. So my human design is, I'm a manifesting generator. And so we are all about like responding to stuff. And so when I learned, I was like, oh my God, that totally makes sense with my journey of like how I've even got here. But basically, for my human design, it is about responding to people. So if I see that, like in Facebook groups, for example, that was kind of how I got hired by, and I took on big clients, and how I kind of got a bit of a name for myself as being someone who helps a lot and does tutorials. And it was from me seeing people ask questions, right? And so if somebody would go, how do I do this? And I'd be like, well, I know how to do it. So I would answer the question. Or I would go and create these tutorials and put them on YouTube for simple little things that people would ask, and they didn't know how to do it. That was just kind of my personality. But it's this kind of responsive thing. I get so much energy from that new ideas, which can be a hindrance. It does distract me. It is a bit of that shiny ball syndrome. It does take me away from stuff that I've planned and been working on for ages. So I know that, right? But the whole point is that I get these ideas and I work on them quickly. I can quickly, knock up a new funnel, create a very simple sales page kind of thing, or it might be a new lead magnet or a webinar, whatever it is, and throw it up. Not literally throw it up, but like throw it up online, put it up on my website, share it a bit on social media, and kind of start doing things. But some of the time, this can be self-sabotage. This can be that I'm perhaps either a bit scared of putting out the big offer. Like I definitely have procrastinated a lot on relaunching my big program. And so I definitely need to do a bit more work on that and really figure out why. But sometimes your self-sabotage can be a lack of clarity, right? Sometimes actually all it needs is for you to just sit down, you like reassess, go over what you're doing. Like if it is a program or a service, a particular package or whatever, or how you're going to promote it. Sometimes you do just need to kind of sit down and really get that clarity again, get really crystal clear on like, why is this important? Why are you creating this or doing this in the first place? Really understanding like, what is it that you're trying to do? What is it that you're really wanting to help people with? So clarity can often be a trigger to get you back into, get you back into motion and get you back in. It's like, if ever you feel like when you're creating content, if ever you're kind of struggling with, what do I say? What do I talk about? Like, and you put it off, sometimes that can be that you're just not clear on what you're offering, why you're offering it, the transformation that it's giving, actually creating a simple way to promote it. So sometimes it's clarity that you need. Sometimes it's alignment. So sometimes, again, if you do find yourself procrastinating a bit, putting it off, having that doubt, not sure on what to talk about as well, sometimes it's that there's this misalignment. So this is one of the reasons that I pivoted in some of my marketing, and I pivoted in the course that I created, was realizing that actually, rather than chasing what's the latest and greatest trends, it's actually how do you have a structure and a framework that kind of covers all the core like buying psychology and marketing stages of journey of taking stranger to customer, for example. But actually, all these platforms, all these methods work. It's about finding your way. So alignment is key. Again, it can be how you're marketing. It can be how you're delivering your offer. Like if you know that you love dealing with people live, like in a live group environment, for example, or perhaps you love working one-to-one with people, but not so much group work, or maybe you love just doing like a weekly call, but you don't want to be showing up weekly with people and you want them to have like go through a course, for example, do you want it to be more passive? So the alignment key, it's about knowing your choices and then going, right, actually this one feels a better fit for me. So alignment can be key. So it's in your marketing, it's in your delivery, it's in your business model. There can be different areas of your business that you can have that check-in of alignment. And so again, when you've got the alignment, you get more clarity. And again, sometimes that can be the big piece to it. But as I say, other times it might just be that there's a gap in your knowledge. There's a gap in your skill set of the more kind of strategic or tactical. People talk about different strategies online when actually it means tactics. But it's in the actual, what's the detail of what you're actually doing? Like, are you going to be doing videos? Are you going to be focusing on TikTok? Do you want to be doing YouTube videos? Do you want to be doing podcasts? Like, how do you want to be attracting people? Do you want to be more passive and have people attract to you? Are you going to be more, okay, for this amount of time, I'm going to go like gun ho and I'm going to do this, Is it more strategic where you need more of an actual plan that also ties in with your alignment, So it's really important to try and recognize what's a like legitimate strategic gap or issue versus actually, is this more self-sabotage with procrastination? Perfectionism is another big one. You keep waiting and waiting and tweaking things until you think it's perfect. Note, it's never going to be perfect, and just fucking get it done. Better is, done is better than perfect, what they say. Yes, it still needs to be high quality enough, but like one of my mentors, it was kind of minimum viable, lean but scrappy. Like I don't build out a whole sales funnel for a brand new offer. I will create something simple. I even will often create just a Google Doc as a sales page before I go and build out a load of tech and stuff. So perfectionism can be a big one that can get in people's way, and obviously avoiding tasks altogether. But I want you to know that we are wired to stay safe. Okay. I did an episode ages ago. I'll put a link to it in the show notes for like other great episodes that you might find useful. And it was about how our mind is actually wired to sabotage us, right? And the gist of it is that, our mind is wired to keep us safe. It's this fight or flight thing, right? When we feel threatened, you either freeze, you either fight, or you flight, right? And our mind, and we are hardwired to thinking back to, caveman days when it literally was, you had to literally avoid real danger, right? Nowadays, that's not such a big thing. But we are wired that way. So when something feels uncomfortable, our mind is going to try and like make us avoid it because it doesn't like this feeling of uncomfort. It wants us to be safe and cuddly and comfortable. Obviously, you have already taken a huge step past that by even having the guts to start a business. It's not easy. There's so many people that aren't cut out for it. There's so many people that do try it and they decide, it's not for me. It's hard work. But that we have to keep pushing past that uncomfort because actually, I'm sure there's been times in your life, not even just business, when you do push through and you have a great experience on the other side of it. Like, oh, thank God I didn't just settle. Thank God I didn't just stay safe and I did push past this, because actually this feeling of like euphoria, achievement, accomplishment, like getting to the top of the mountain kind of thing feels great. And that feeling is what you want to hold on to. So the first thing I want you to really think about is look at what things are you doing? What things do you think could be self-sabotage? What things do you recognize you're doing? And sometimes it's not. And if you find yourself going down this chasing of new tactics and strategies, actually, it might just be that there is a deeper fear of failure. Even there could be a fear of success that is actually the root cause and the real reason of what's holding you back. So the next part I want to talk about, and this is something that I've definitely recognized the older I've got and the more experienced I've got, and this is for the women, this is for us girlies, and that is the impact of our cycles on our mindset. Like I turned 40 last year, and I definitely recognized in the last couple of years that I was feeling more anxious, and I recognized that it wasn't just anxiety that was being heightened. I then recognized that actually I would feel more doubt about myself and my business and my offers and everything the closer I got to when Mother Nature was going to show her ugly face, right? And that was a really great insight. And so I want you to think about your own cycles. I'm actually in the middle of listening to a podcast. I listen to podcasts in the car when I'm driving to swimming. And I'm currently listening to an episode of The Diary of the CEO. And it's an episode about fertility and about cycles. And it was really interesting, actually. There was one little just a shorter segment all about cycles and actually how women work, right? And about when our energy is high, when our energy is low. And it was funny that she was, kind of almost teaching. Stephen Bartlett was there, writing notes of what to do with his girlfriend, like when to give her some space, when to shower her with love and compliments, when to support her, when to buy her chocolate, and that this is the reality of it. And obviously, we we are complex beings, us women. And so it's important to look at your cycles and try to play into those ups and downs, right? So, and this could probably be a whole other episode, and maybe I'll do that. Not that I'm the expert on menstrual cycles. Mine are all over the place because I've got PCOS. So mine have always been a bit irregular, which is a pain in the ass. But I recognize when I feel more down, obviously when you're right in the first day or two, that's not the day for me to be showing up and recording videos because my energy is low. I feel like shit. I will just take my laptop on the sofa, have some telly on in the background, and I'll do some kind of easy behind the scenes work that doesn't need me to show up and have a lot of energy for. But then when it's, obviously the other side of it, you have more energy, you are more creative. That's the time to, come up with new ideas. That's the time to write your content, to record it, however you like to do it. And so it's important to kind of track your cycle in that way. And that's the beauty of obviously being our own boss. We can change our schedule, make it fit around us. So look at what tweaks you might be able to make to match your energy. Let's say with the admin task that's boring, with the technical stuff, with the creative stuff, with the productivity, like when you're in not full flow as in Mother Nature, but flow as in your productivity and your activity. That's the time to really work on those big projects and things like that. So when it comes to our mindset, it's recognizing if you are in that, oh my God, you're in that doubtful, if you recognize you're more anxious, and then a week later you suddenly go, oh, that's why. So often I feel like I want to burn my business to the ground, and then you go, oh, okay, I don't actually. It's just stupid hormones, okay? But they're real, right? They give us real feelings. Our feelings are real in the moment. But actually, you are in the driving seat. You're not working a job. So yes, you'll have certain commitments, but you can also rework certain things. If you're regular like clockwork, amazing. Like you really can work your schedule around that. Mine are a little bit less regular, but I still have I recognize the anxiousness and the doubt that comes up, and obviously the physical signs as well with sore boobs and whatnot. I want to cry at everything and just eat all the chocolate. You recognize these things. You'll have your own symptoms. And so we know when it's coming. So, try to schedule those high energy tasks during the first half of your cycle and have more reflective, administrative, behind the scenes stuff on the second half when you don't feel so good. So when we're looking at this self-doubt and the self-sabotage and actually trying to understand what is that root cause of it, I want you to ask yourself some questions to really try and uncover where it's coming from, where it's stemming from. And obviously, say you can do some work to really get to the bottom, like actually work with your subconscious mind. And this is something that I can do. I do have an offer that I do have a program that I work with people where we can work on this on a deep level. But some things that you can just start, whether it's journaling, you can just get out a notepad and just start jotting down some thoughts to some of these questions. And you can actually uncover a lot just with your conscious mind, but then you get to an even deeper level with the subconscious. But ask yourself, what are your feelings and doubts really about? So you can ask yourself, what's really going on here? What does it mean if this feeling comes about? What does it mean if then that is true? And you can kind of almost go down several layers, which means that, and then you can kind of fill in the blank. And then with that, like that means that, and it helps you kind of go just a few levels deeper. You can ask yourself, why aren't you trusting yourself? Reflect on, perhaps has there been a time in your past when when you couldn't trust yourself, and you can kind of brainstorm and think about when have been times when I I couldn't trust myself, or something happened that, if it's that you feel embarrassed, or you were wrong, or you were judged for how you spoke, not for like how you spoke, but you were judged for what you said. So if you kind of fear showing up online, it can sometimes be that there was a time that you were embarrassed. And like, my brothers used to constantly be, I was the youngest, right? And I was the only girl. So I had two older brothers. So you can imagine what that was like. So they were constantly, making me believe stupid things, right? I mean, there were some just such embarrassing things. But that was what they did. They were older brothers. But those things can sometimes lock into your mind, that then you sometimes doubt, like, is what I'm saying actually right? And I had that a lot. This was one of my things that came up, from these stupid, just older brotherly things. What they would just make me believe these stupid things. Actually, it made me not always trust what I was saying. So I had to kind of do some work around that. All these, stupid brothers. Love them dearly. But these things from when we're kids, we don't know any better, and our brains aren't fully formed. And so it latches on. And this is how it can show up with things that you would think, well, that's ridiculous. Why on earth is my brain like connecting this stupid thing that as an adult, that like they didn't mean it, or it was just, it's just sibling things. Or perhaps it was parents or teachers or neighbors or, grandparents or whatever. There can be these things that can seem so ridiculous. And when you do, subconscious work and hypnotherapy, you're like, oh my God. I mean, I've literally laughed so many times when my brain has told me what the actual like root cause was and where it came from. I'm like, really? But then you work on reframing the mind, telling it that it's crap, and you then will rewire your brain into what's actually real and work. And you'll basically keep repeating with recordings with the reality, right? And it gets rid of that. And so this is why we're wired to protect ourselves from that discomfort and push through. So I'll put a list of questions in the show notes of things that you can kind of journal about and ask yourself to just start this process of trying to uncover, like, where are some of these doubts coming from? And obviously, if you want to work more one-to-one, which, we can really get really specific, then the program that I have, again, I'll put details in the show notes for you, can be a really great thing that we can work through and really kind of figure out where it's coming from and heal it. So we've talked a bit about, like, what is self-sabotage, how you can sort of recognize it, how you can also then work with your cycle and actually understanding those peaks and troughs of your mindset. We've talked about going a little bit deeper. So I want to give you some other sort of strategies of thinking about how you can just get these things recognized quicker, and then you can take action, because it really does come down to awareness. The more you know about this stuff and you learn about this stuff and you recognize your own behaviors and habits and thoughts that creep in, the more successful you are going to be, because when you recognize your thoughts going off in a tangent, you can stop it, right? We can stop our thoughts. We can say, no, not having that today. We're not doing this. We know different. And then you change your thoughts. You start to, this is why people talk about, positive affirmations and stuff. And so you can do this in the morning. If you wake up and your mind's going, you're like, why? No, I'm not having this today. This is not how we're going. And you start saying to your mind great things instead. You start telling your mind, no, we're having a great day. I know that I am awesome. Like, I've helped so many people. So you change your thoughts, and that's the quickest way that you can get out of that slump. Other things that you can do is you can, one of the things I love to do, actually, especially if you're doubting your capabilities, or if you've had a bit of a sales drought and you're like, oh God, like, am I actually skilled enough to do this? Is anyone going to buy from me? Is go back and look through firstly, I want to make sure that you are actually taking screenshots, collecting really lovely feedback from, whether it could be in communities, it could be clients, anywhere, basic friends, but actually take screenshots and save it in a folder on your phone, on your computer, whatever. Social proof where people have gone, oh my God, I loved this thing. Make sure that you are grabbing it, screenshotting it, because my tip for you is when you're feeling this way, when you're really kind of doubting yourself, go back through all those screenshots. Look through your testimonials, look through, or go and watch old videos if you need to, where people are saying how much you've helped them, how much they enjoyed your workshop, or they loved your freebie, or they loved your course, or they loved working with you, or how much you helped them. And oh my God, your teaching style, like whatever it is, that again just gives you that lovely little ego boost that we sometimes need. It gives you that endorphins and the dopamine, and you're just like, oh, okay, what you're telling yourself in that moment is bullshit. And actually, what you're seeing from real life, from facts, this is the reality. So that's a really great one. And again, a quick win that you can do to get yourself out of that funk and actually remembering you are awesome. You are brilliant. You can obviously practice more mindfulness. So another thing that I love to do, I listen to a lot of sleep hypnosis. When we work together with the RTT that I'm trained in, you get a personalized recording that's obviously just for you with your specific thoughts and goals and and how you're wanting to feel with your wording. And so you listen to that every day for at least 3 weeks. 4 weeks is better. And, like I listen to loads of different sleep hypnosis things, could be on YouTube. If I'm in a particularly like funk, I get my own personal recordings from my previous therapy sessions out and I re-listen to those for another month. But putting in the subconscious like word while you're sleeping is amazing, and it helps you have an amazing night's sleep, because especially as an entrepreneur, our brains go wild, right? And so when we actually rest and go to sleep, if you find that that's when your brain wakes up, it's a really great way of just kind of calming the brain, and you have an amazing sleep. So doing more mindfulness, it could be meditation, it could be in the morning, you taking some time to journal, to meditate, to doing yoga, to just being, going for a walk, exercise is massive. Definitely when I feel more anxious, I love to get out and have a walk around my field. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see my field all the time. It's not actually my field, but it's like just up the road. There's a lovely field that I'll walk around, and it's just so lovely and open and spacious. And I'll see the odd dog walker, but it's just me and my thoughts. And especially when it's nice and sunny like today, it's just lovely. So exercise, nature does your mindset wonders. And then obviously, get help, get, whether it's mentorship, if you think actually it is, you need some of the more strategic help, or say, this is why I build both things into my programs, so you can have that more kind of complete and holistic view. And also you can set yourself realistic goals. Are your expectations too high in terms of how much you can get done in your day or in your week? Do you need to break things down more into little bite-sized pieces so it's more achievable? So there can be some sort of practical ways in how you actually plan your tasks, manage your tasks. And this is stuff that's also included in my Reset and Reboot program as well. So, it's a mixture of practical things, mindset things, healing, and create a really nice environment, making sure that things are clean and tidy, having a nice space, environment, creating time for you to just think and be, is also important. Celebrating those small wins, every day or every week, you do a little evaluation of actually what things went well this week. And it doesn't even have to be like, oh, I got all these sales or all these leads or monetary. It could be actually, do you know what? I stayed really focused this week, or actually I was able to, fit in three workouts this week. I was able to go and take some time and go and see a friend of mine. I was able to finish this project that's been on the to-do list for ages. It can be these little things. I was able to show up and promote my offers every single day. All these little small small wins can be great, and it's really important that you celebrate those. And so the more that you do these things, the more you use mindfulness, setting realistic goals, celebrating, gratitude, journaling, being aware of your thoughts, your environment, what's going on, can really help you overcome doubt and self-sabotage. You focus on, what's important, why you're doing this stuff. Remembering, one of the things I say to myself is, especially if I haven't perhaps promoted anything for a while, or I haven't shown up so much, it's like, how could I help somebody today? Or who can I serve today? And that's just a much better energy for helping you show up with, without constantly thinking about like sales and money. It's like, who could I help today? What's something that I know that I could help somebody with? So that's for me, like this, I'll just jump on stories and I'll just talk about something that I love and I know that can help somebody. It might be a tool I've found, it might be a little trick that I've noticed, or it might just be just a little thought of the day, and I love those times. And it's those times are when you tend to get someone to go, oh, thank you, I really needed that today, So remember, who can you help today? And that can just help you just take some kind of action. And that's the last little thing, is just do something. If you're in this funk of procrastination, you're just like, oh God, you're flittering around going, what am I going to do? What should I do? Just do one little thing, one little step, and that will then build to then doing another step. But just do one thing. Anything, doesn't matter what it is, but just do something for your business. Write a headline or write a hook for a piece of content. Show up in your stories and just share whatever's on your mind, just do something. And just taking this small, repeatable actions every day, every week, before you know it, then you are got this momentum. You're thinking, oh, I'm surprised you don't feel that way anymore. Perhaps your engagement is growing on your content, like whatever it is. But suddenly then you feel like now you feel back in control. You feel good. You're like, yes, I've got these things in my tool belt. You will feel doubtful again. It's not like it's just a one and done thing. But like, as I mentioned earlier, the time frame of when you might be kind of going down this doubtful spiral to how you get back into action and feeling confident is shortened. The more aware you are, the more practice you do with these things. And that's how you continue to be successful. This is how you continue to stay in your business game. This is what's the difference between, sticking it out, keep going, keep growing, to what's the alternative, right? What is the alternative if you don't figure this out? What is the alternative to you not getting the help, to figuring it out, especially if you have these reoccurring cycles of self-sabotage, if the same things keep coming up again and again, and if you're not actually really doing the work to figure it out, you're going to end up there back again. And is that something that you really want? Can you afford for that same cycle to keep happening again and again? What happens if you don't sort that out? Where's that going to lead you? And is that where you want to go? Versus sometimes just spending, a few weeks with a professional, getting the help that you need, that can be the biggest difference between the trajectory 1 to the trajectory, that's so hard to say, trajectory 2, right? Which is the one that you want? Yellow brick road, follow the yellow brick road, right? You get to the fork in the road. Which way are you going to go? Which one is going to help you reach your goals, give you the life that you want more? So I think I'll leave it there. I think it's a nice way to kind of end, right? So just recognize self-sabotage, understanding your mindset more, and how, you'll create your own tools and methods. So hopefully I've given you some good examples and things that you can try, and you'll find your own. I'd love to hear them. Perhaps you already do. Do feel free to share them with me, whether it's in the comments of this episode, or you can come and, send me a DM on Instagram. Love hearing from you. What are the things that you do, or what are some things that you've taken from this episode to go, oh, yes, I like the idea of that you're going to try. And obviously, if you do want to be able to work more deeply on some of these things, and you would like to get the help from me, so I have my one-to-one reset and reboot program. It's a 4-week program where we will work together. And so you get the subconscious help as well as energy clearing. And then we do work on a actionable plan for you. We'll create a clear plan, more of the kind of strategic and tactical sides of things that help you, get to whatever you're wanting to do. So we'll then create a clear and solid plan that's broken down for you, so you can walk away not only with all the inner stuff healed and sorting out, we can then get you super clear on, right, how now are you going to take this forward? What's the pieces that obviously have been getting in the way, you've been perhaps putting off, and we'll give you that clear plan. So if you would like to learn more information about that, you can check in the show notes for that. I only have a couple of spots open for this. I don't promote this offer very often, but it is there. But because I wanted to talk about mindset more today, then I wanted to obviously tell people that this is an option for you. I've just rebranded it. It was called Enough to Enrollments, but I wanted to change it because of make the name a bit more about what it reflects. And it really is that reset. It's hitting the reset. It's rebooting your mind, your activity, and getting you back on that path. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you can go and check the show notes for that. So if you're watching this on my blog, there'll be a button below, there'll be a resources section, or again, if you're on YouTube or the podcast, there'll be a link to the show notes below that you can go and get all of the resources that I've mentioned in this episode. And I also put some other useful episodes that kind of go with this as well that you might also find useful. So lots to think about. This is a meaty topic. Again, we could go over things in even more detail. So if there is a particular topic that you would like me to cover, feel free to share that with me. I'm always obviously building out my content plan, so would love to be able to make sure I'm covering topics that you enjoy. So I hope you found this useful. Do share with me your takeaways. Come and follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JennyStevensCoaching. Again, all these links of how you can come and connect with me will be below. But I hope you found this useful, and I hope you can take away from this and just start to be a bit more aware about what's going up in that noggin of yours, and just start to work through and cut the crap, right? And tell yourself, actually, this is just bullshit stories that your mind is making up. It is lies. And so a great quote that I heard from Marissa Peer, I think it was her, who I learned, she's basically the creator of rapid transformational therapy, but it was, tell yourself better lies. And I love that. It's like, the crap that our mind will tell ourselves, like, oh, we're not good enough. It's bullshit lies. And so tell yourself better lies, ones that actually are positive, and, start to reframe how your mind is thinking. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you found this useful. Thank you so much for sticking through this episode with me. Do go and check the show notes for all the resources. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I am here. My inbox is open. So do reach out, and I hope you have an amazing day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.